And welcome! Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Helium Down Under video. My name is Ian. I'm your host for this particular video. And guys, tonight, or on this particular call, we have got a very special guest that I will be bringing on in just a couple of moments' time to share some of the pearls of wisdom in building a successful network with Helium on the IoT network. Okay. Folks, if this is the first time actually tuning into the call, this channel has a solid focus on Helium and IoT. Now, we focus very specifically on a part of the IoT and Helium network, and that's, of course, down here in Australia and New Zealand. This is the AU 915 frequency band channel, if you like. That's our specialty. Now, we do obviously talk about other things from time to time, and we talk very generally about Helium, and tonight we're going to be doing that with our special guest, but we are very much about focusing on supporting and building our local network down here, down under in Australia and New Zealand. By the time many of you watch this, you will have already known the fact that Links.dot is now launching their sales into Australia. As of next week, Monday next week, the email will be coming out. So we will be seeing Links.dot hotspots on the map spread across this big, gorgeous country of ours very, very soon. And of course, the IoT store over in WA is now our local distributor that has been officially announced by Seed. So we've got two great sources of hotspots, very reliable vendors that will be providing the hardware that will allow us to build the Internet of Things here in Australia and to build our Helium and HNT wallets. It's a very exciting time indeed. Now, if you have not at this point hit the subscribe button, guys, if I could ask you to hit the subscribe button, this channel's all about supporting you. So if this is the first time you're watching the channel, guys, support me by hitting the subscribe button so that you get notification of all of the next emails that come out. You can also hit the like button right now or at any time through the video when you see great content, just to once again help with the YouTube algorithm to lift the importance of this video up the chart so that more people see it, and here in Australia and of course across the world. I'd really appreciate that. Who we're going to actually speak to tonight, Crypto Gossip. If you have not tuned into his channel, I do encourage you to visit Adam's channel, subscribe to his channel, and follow along with all of the fantastic content that he has to provide. So without further ado, here we go. Adam, here you are, mate. Thanks so much for being on our Helium Down Under call today. It's awesome to have those people who have been out in this helium world for a little bit longer than us Aussies and Kiwis down here. So welcome along to the channel, my friend.
Thanks, Ian. I'm glad to be a part of the channel. It's fun to be able to talk to somebody from Australia and to hear how things are going over there for you guys too.
Yeah, well, you'll have to excuse our funny voices, but just like the Americans like listening to Australian voices, funny enough, we like listening to American voices. So I'm sure that the Helium Down Under crew will enjoy hearing your story. So, Adam, you're in that big state that the Americans like to say is the largest state in the country, being Texas. Is that correct?
Definitely the biggest in terms of the best and the biggest. I know Alaska, from a size standpoint, from a geography standpoint, a little bigger, but we always say everything's big in Texas, and so we're definitely proud of our state here.
Well, I'm in Queensland, as we were discussing before the call, and I know that when our premier, our state leader, was in the US recently, well, I guess it was about 18 months ago, I do recall her actually having a bit of a dig at the Prime Minister about the size of Queensland is actually bigger than Texas, but we won't go there for tonight. So, Adam, mate, you've been doing some great things on YouTube. You were one of the first YouTube content creators that I actually started to follow when I started my Helium journey about 4 odd months ago. And I'm quite certain that many of the Helium Down Under crew will have also tuned into your channel because we've promoted you before, but after this I'm hoping that they'll all actually zone in on your channel and pick up in any of the pearls of wisdom that you can share. How about you run us through a bit of a journey of where you've been with Helium and your crypto journey as a whole?
Well, I appreciate you reaching out and doing this, and appreciate the kind words about the channel. Like you, I think it was just having gone through some of these crypto projects like Helium, being excited about what it was doing, decided to start up a channel myself. I'm pretty new to all this myself, having started the channel in early March, but I was involved with Helium and decided to purchase and place an order for a Helium hotspot back in May of 2020. So a little over a year ago now. Has just been following whenever all of the financial markets really suffered and took a hit. I've been following the crypto markets, not really ever taken the leap to get into that. But then when everything really, really dropped significantly back in March of 2020 was when I started paying attention and realizing maybe I need to get into the cryptocurrency space,
Hmm.
started watching YouTube videos and found some information about and somehow stumbled onto a video about the Helium hotspot. And it just made a lot of sense for me, being somebody who was maybe a little more conservative about the cryptocurrency markets and didn't really want. I looked into like the ASIC mining and all the other types of more complex GPU mining. And it just was, I'm not a technical person, so it was not something that I was excited about. When I saw Helium was a passive, consumer friendly project, I understood it. I kind of got it as a consumer that it made sense that something like this with the IoT devices would make sense. I decided to take a leap and place the order back in May of 2020. And just like today, when we experienced these shipping challenges, at the time, Helium was the manufacturer of the hotspots. There were these OG hotspots that they made.
Hmm.
And even then, the demand was picking up to the point where it was going to be a while before I received my hotspot. So at the time, I actually bought my Helium hotspot in May of 2020. The token price was 50 cents. That was back when, and it's funny to think about that nowadays. When I got the Helium hotspot, I didn't get it until August, so it took me a few months to get. So really, nothing has changed for everybody who's frustrated now about the shipping delays and the shipping challenges. It was something I was used to because even back a year ago, it was a few months before you could get your miner, and then when I got that, at the time when I got it, it had already gone up to $1.50 a token, so I kind of missed out a little bit on those early 50-cent days. I plugged my hotspot in and was active starting in August, about a year ago. So I guess I would say I'm a little bit of an OG Helium hotspot person compared to a lot of people and got into it pretty early. But having said that, was probably somebody that, because I wasn't technical, didn't really, I saw out there where people were putting antennas up on their roofs and doing some of these other things. At the time, I didn't see the vision for that because when you think about a hotspot that's at $1 a token and you're earning, what I was only earning a few of these a week, it just wasn't worth the investment and the time and the effort at the time in my own ignorance to really put that effort out there.
Hmm.
And so I plugged it in just like you see on the videos and the advertisements. I plugged it in and put it into a second floor window and was probably earning, somewhere around one or two tokens a week. And so I was earning probably 5 to 10 a month. And so at $1 to $1.50, it wasn't anything where I was getting super excited about it. So then at that point, my journey was that where I was really benefiting at the time was from those consensus groups where you were getting every once in a while, you'd all of a sudden wake up to a 40 HNT token, lottery win.
Happy
And because
birthday.
there weren't as many hotspots out, yeah, it was nice. I actually hit three of those consensus groups before I started kind of really getting heavily involved in the spring. And those were the things that were really generating the most tokens for me at the time.
Hmm.
And again, from a journey standpoint, it was something I viewed as a side project, kind of a fun hobby to be able to do. And then obviously, like as a lot of people experienced when the crypto boom hit in December, January, February, you started seeing the token price increasing to the point where I was still not optimizing my spot. I was still ignorant of really the benefits of doing that. And so in March, when I started my channel, if you watched my earlier videos, I kind of talk about the fact that somebody on Helium's Discord was offering to buy aftermarket hotspots. I actually sold my hotspot to that person because I wasn't seeing that mine was earning enough to make it worth it, and decided to take the money that they offered me, which is a couple $1,000s, so
Well,
not a small amount of money for a $300 investment.
hmm.
I actually did a transaction and met this person up, gave him my hotspot, got the $2,000, and decided to use that money to buy more hotspots and buy several hotspots at that point. Really, it took whenever I saw where my hotspot was relocated to the Seattle, Washington area,
Hmm.
and this person actually started having they optimized my setup to the
Hmm.
point where they were earning about 400 HNT a month.
And what were
Um,
you earning
and that was
previously in your sort of
and
in your
I
standard
was
setup?
only, I was only getting, I was only getting one or two a week. So I
Oh,
was probably getting, maybe 8 to 10 HNT a month, not really understanding. I was not until really a lot more came into my
hmm.
area. Probably wasn't really a lot of hotspots there. And the Seattle, Portland areas have done quite well here.
Hmm.
I think that was really when I saw that the token price was hitting, at that point, it was around $5 to $6, $7 a token. When I saw and I was kind of following the journey of my hotspot that I had sold to somebody that suddenly was earning 400 a month, that was what made me really realize, A, I should have optimized it all along and I would have
Yes.
never sold it. B, there's something more to this than I was really realizing,
Hmm.
and really wanted to make sure in doing a YouTube channel that I was sharing, the helium journey, the project, making sure people knew that for people who were beginners in the crypto space, if you don't want to do ASIC mining, you don't want to do GPU mining, all the other complexities, a simple device that you can go and plug into your wall, hook it up to your wireless, and then just sit back and let it do its thing.
Yep.
I really wanted people to know more about that and thought this was going to be a really cutting edge, exciting project to be able to tell people about.
Well, mate, I know that I'm thankful for the effort that you've put into your channel. And how many subscribers are you sitting at the moment, Adam? You?
It's been a wild ride, and I think I started in March, and I just hit the 10,000 subscriber
Yeah.
mark in the last week or two.
Well, good
It's been
job.
kind of surreal to be a part of something like that. My
Yeah.
kids have been YouTubers doing gaming YouTube videos for a year or two.
Okay.
I tried some other channels that were kind of gaming related and didn't do much with it. So it's one of those things that I've been following a lot of YouTubers for a long time and seeing how they're doing. The fact that I'm at a 10,000 subscriber level
Yeah.
has been kind of surreal, and the fact that people are, it comes with a lot of responsibility, as you can probably
Yeah,
feel
for
too with
sure.
your channel. Of when you start getting bigger like this, when you're posting videos where you're recommending something, talking about something, for me, it's I don't there's a lot of burden with that because
Yes.
I don't want to recommend something that people are not going to have success at. I know we've talked about before, before we got on this, that when we talk about something like the shipping challenges we're
Yeah.
having with some of these vendors, the fact that I was out plugging like the Nebra, for example, back in March and April,
Yeah.
you start to feel bad that people, had that negative experience, although none of us could anticipate that at the time. But yeah, I appreciate that it's been a fun journey overall.
That's fantastic, mate. It really has. I mean, not that probably most of the viewers of this video are particularly interested in our YouTube journeys. I, as a fellow YouTuber, can appreciate, mate, the challenges that you're going through. It's
Yeah,
if if folks knew how much time you actually sat at your computer putting things together, it might
yeah.
change the level. But mate, we don't do it for the fame or the glory, and definitely don't do it for the money. My true reason is
Definitely.
to literally is to genuinely help my sort of fellow Aussies down here, because it's I sort of figure if I can help people to build their networks and build them strong, that this is probably one of the few opportunities out there in the world, in crypto, where by helping other people, I'm not robbing myself. I'm actually going to help myself through building a strong network,
Hmm.
whether I look at it from the IoT perspective of building that strong IoT network, or whether I look at it from a proof of coverage in a localized area. So yeah, it's going to be
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
But mate, if you actually hit on something a moment ago, that this is really the crux of what most people down here are asking at the moment, and I've got a few videos in the planning stages at the moment that I need to get out. But actually, those physical setups. So you talked about
Hmm.
your OG hotspot. So describe for us your hotspot setup when you were earning those one or two HNT per day back in the good old days when that was considered low earnings. We'd love to be
Hmm.
earning one or two a day now. But what was your setup then compared to what the fella did with it when he took it to, sorry, I've forgotten where you said he took it to, but
Yeah, he was up in the Seattle area. Yeah.
Seattle. Okay, so what did he do differently that you're aware of? 'Cause obviously, I don't know if you've ever seen his setup, but what did he do that you're aware of that made those vast differences to the earnings?
I think what I can share is really what I did differently from my own setup that has resulted in significant earnings with my own location, in which he probably did a similar thing because the reason why I even met this person who bought my hotspot was that I was trying to get help from people on the Helium Discord about my setup
Mm-hmm.
when I finally realized all the earnings I was missing out on. But when you see those teaser trailers about the Helium concept,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like where they kind of it's a little deceiving because when you watch, there's a really fun kind of intro that Helium did back a year or two ago where it shows them just putting it on their coffee table in their
Yeah.
first floor window. And I think that the perception you get is you
Yeah.
just plug it into some place and you can earn. But what I would definitely say that for any of the viewers watching this, optimizing your hotspot to get optimal performance is really not as difficult and expensive as I had originally thought it was, and I wish I'd have known what I knew now.
Mm-hmm.
But the key with all this, and maybe something you've been sharing with them too. I mean, height is king and the
Yes.
key to this. You can probably screw up a lot of other things, but if you get the height right, the way that the signal works is that the higher it goes up, the farther out it's going to get
Yep.
in your area. For me personally, being on the second floor window, the other issue I was running into was as I placed it, or my original placement was in a windowsill and the inside of the house where I had a window blocking my signal. I
Mm-hmm.
had I had a bug screen that even though they said don't do that, I just left it on there and had a bug screen on there.
What
And
would they
so
know?
I did all the things wrong that, that you could do wrong. And so again, I was getting those kind of proof of coverage pings. I
Mm-hmm.
was getting the occasional witness, and that was all I was really ever getting. And then the consensus rewards. It was really amazing and very eye-opening when I made those adjustments. My first adjustment was to get rid of the bug screen
Yes.
and to try to elevate it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watched my early videos from March and April, I originally was advised to, at the very least, try to get an outdoor antenna and a cable that I could kind of keep the miner where it was at, and
Mm-hmm.
then put a wire underneath the window, and then have the antenna on the outside. The problem with that was it still did not really get the needed result because your height was still the same. It may have increased things a little bit, but really it was a matter of putting it up in a higher location and getting it above the tree line and really out of that interference of all the trees, the windows, my house, that really made a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the setup that I ended up optimizing that you can find on my channel where I actually talked about what I finally ended up doing, and I took some video of what my setup looks like, and it kind of surprised some people was that I put it in the attic of my house. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not to say that putting it on the roof or putting it on the outside is not a good way to go. But there is some complexity with having to have, if you're going to put it on the outside, you may have to put the hotspot itself on the outside of the house, which
Mm-hmm.
means you have to get an outdoor enclosure. You have to get some extra cables. There was some extra setup you'd need to spend on that. I did get some help from a local Helium kind of expert that was offering his services locally to install the Helium antennas and hotspots. He came out and took a look at it. We ultimately decided that going into my attic, it's about another 10 feet above my second floor
Yes.
where I have a really tall attic and roof. We bolted it, a little, clip or hanger onto a post in the attic and put the outdoor antenna on there and the Helium hotspot right next to that. That kept it from having to worry about weather,
Mm-hmm.
rain. It does get hot in the attic, there's a high heat tolerance for the rack wireless that I used. And just by doing that outdoor antenna, the other key to that is with we talked about height,
Mm-hmm.
but your antenna is also a key component. The original OG hotspot was only a 2 dBi antenna, so pretty weak. The rack wireless was only about, actually, no, the original was 1.2 dBi. The rack wireless default is 2.3. I bought a 5.8 dBi outdoor glass fiber antenna. The other advice I would definitely give people is to make sure you get that glass fiber outdoor antenna, even if you do use it inside, just because the signal's better, the receptivity's better. So I put that Even though I talked about earlier putting it outside my window, I only had it there for a day before the guy came out. I'm like, look, I'm going to just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and optimize this thing the best I can. I put that up on the attic and added another 10 feet of height. Even though there's people ask about that roof line, I think ultimately the roof and the shingles is not as much interference for the antenna as brick or windows
Mm-hmm.
or other things in your house. The fact that it's just surrounded by a roof is still not enough to really have a lot of a problem. You put that setup in there, and literally within a 2 or 3 hour time frame, I was getting witnesses. I was beaking out and hitting witnesses, and it was really so fun to experience that because I'd watched a lot of other people's YouTube videos. I had seen other hotspots out on the Helium Explorer network
Mm-hmm.
that were hitting all these witnesses, and it was almost like I didn't believe it was real until it actually started happening to me, and I'm like, okay, this is a legitimate, the
Yeah, this
height
is
and putting
real.
this in the right way really does work. And I felt that excitement that a lot of people feel about the Helium project really for the first time when I all of a sudden was getting, I'm at a point now with my hotspot. I'm probably at somewhere in the 15 to 20 witness number.
Yes, okay.
Um, I'm witnessing as far away as Dallas, about 34 kilometers away, which
Wow.
is a pretty
And
long distance.
and that's with your antenna in the
Getting,
roof? That sorry, in the
yeah,
ceiling area?
so with my antenna now, inside the attic, it's not outside,
Mm-hmm.
in the attic, about 10 feet higher, so probably 25 to 30 feet
Wow.
with a 5.8 dBi antenna. It's out getting about, it's about a 15 to 20 witnesses,
Wow.
reaching out as far as 34 kilometers that I'm either hitting or
Yeah.
getting or receiving witnesses from.
Yep.
So it's definitely been an exciting, thing to kind of witness, no pun intended, witness that. Because then, of course, with each one of those witnesses and each one of those pings out, your beacons, those are more earnings you're getting. So
Mm-hmm.
before the halving of the earnings we were getting that started August 1st, here I was going from 1.5, let's say 1 to 1.5 HNT a week.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting as much as 5, 6, or 7 HNT a
A
day.
day. It's just
It was just
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look, I think there's some simple things that people can do. I obviously, since most of us here in Australia don't have our hotspots yet, we haven't been through that setup. But I have seen enough material that it would seem like it's just plug and play, and it's a bit of a shame. In principle, yes, I guess you can plug and play. You can plug it in, and it will work, and it will create its IoT frequencies, etc. But I just don't think that that's really viable for 99% of people. I would really, really love for those people watching, watching this video and any of my videos afterwards, is to recognize that probably the first thing that, this is my opinion, not my, this is, don't do this because you think this is what you have to do. This is my opinion. The first thing you do when you actually get your hotspot home is take that little antenna that's in the box and throw it away. That way you're not tempted to use it. Go and get yourself an external antenna, and whether, like Adam, you put it in the attic or ceiling space, as we'd call it here in Australia, or whether you put it outside. So you're getting the witnesses 35 miles or 35 kilometers, did you say then, Adam?
It's a kilometers, just because when you look at what's on the Helium Explorer, they use the
Yes.
kilometer measurements versus in the US we use miles. So it's
Yes.
34 kilometers, which the
That's
34 kilometer location is in downtown Dallas, and
mm-hmm.
so it's obvious that they have a setup that
Yes.
you also have to benefit from their good setup. There are hotspots that are only 1 or 2 kilometers away from me that I'm not hitting,
Mm-hmm.
probably because they are not optimized
No.
themselves. So you have to think about it, for anybody listening, that let's say there's 130,000 hotspots out in the network right now, which is I think the
Mm-hmm.
latest number I saw today. Now, that might be discouraging because you think, well, there's so many hotspots, I can't earn, I can't, we're not going to be able to earn as much HNT. But if you think about the fact that what percentage of those
Mm-hmm.
hotspots are really optimized, you're probably talking about, maybe what, 20 or 30% of those that are
Yep.
really, doing what
That's
they're supposed to be doing. You're going to be able to separate yourself from the pack and earn more. And it's such a no-brainer when you think about like the cost to set up something like I described.
mm-hmm.
probably $50 to $100 for the antenna.
Mm-hmm.
Just you're going to the grocery store and buying a little broom handle, adhesive that sticks to your, to put up on the post.
Yes.
Just some screws, some wiring. I mean, it's really there's not much of a cost to set it up for the trade-off of quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
more earnings you're getting. I mean, and so when we talk about now after the halving that happened August 1st, where they reduced the earnings in half,
Mm-hmm.
my location is still generating somewhere around one HNT a day,
Mm-hmm.
which is not bad at all when you think about, where we're going with all this and
Yeah.
given the competition out there. I have another just as a testimonial that this is not unique to my location. I also have the same setup that I have my cousin about 5 miles away from me,
Mm-hmm.
5 kilometers away actually, that I set up the same thing. I went up to their attic. We went in and raised it up and put it in their attic. Exact same setup, exact same 5.8 dBi antenna. They're also in a location where they actually have more hotspots in their area,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting about the same result as me. So they all along were,
Wow.
when we first hooked it up, and back in around the same time as mine, again was getting 5, 6, 7 HNT a day. Now
Mm-hmm.
probably more like 1 to 1.5 a day. And so for me, still getting 1.5 to 2 a week early on in this project, anytime you can get an HNT a day or
Mm-hmm.
two HNT, and there's probably people still optimized even more than I am,
Yeah.
still doing even better than that. But you see, like today, with HNT being at, 20 to 21, $22 a
All-time high,
token,
baby. All-time
it's
high.
all that stuff adds up over time. So it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's obviously this our long-term financial success from the Helium venture is dependent on the price of HNT, and I know that you're not a financial advisor, nor am I. I mean, neither of us have got any special skills or experience when it comes to crypto. I personally see HNT is going to be a very strong performer because it leverages off a fundamental system. It's something that's tangible, unlike many of the cryptocurrencies that are out there. What are your thoughts on it, Adam? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, and there was I actually I made a video myself, but it was really covering a topic that somebody is that the founder of a company called FairSpot that does
Yes.
helium hosting, talked about something called the helium flywheel.
Yes.
It's that there was a company that was one of the early investors in the Helium project that kind of showed a graphic of how this works. And to your point, the price of the HNT token, as you know, even though people might get concerned about more hotspots being
Mm-hmm.
added to the network and there's a fixed supply being distributed every month, with that increase, it's going to be there's that scarcity component to
Mm-hmm.
this where you're going to naturally see the price of HNT increase because there is a fixed supply of the token. Like Bitcoin, it's only going to be able to be, there's a fixed amount that can be mined. It's going to be
Yes.
halved every 2 years. And I think the other big part that people kind of miss about this is sometimes we all get so focused on the miners or the hotspots
Mm-hmm.
themselves and people getting concerned about earnings. What they're missing about this is we're building an entire network
Mm-hmm.
of this wireless coverage, and it's the data that we're going to be getting data credits for from people actually using the network
Yes.
is when you're going to start to see that the data credits get used up. We actually have a burn and mint mechanism to the
Mm-hmm.
token where you're burning HNT for that, so it's going to further reduce the supply. And at this point, what we have not seen to the tip of the iceberg of the actual demand for our token
Mm-hmm.
in a use case. But when I look at, like you said, the whole crypto space, so many of the crypto currencies and tokens out there don't really have a utility yet. Maybe they will at some point. HNT is one that you can even now tangibly see the result of. There
Yes.
are companies using HNT or buying data credits to use, and this is still so early on that I can only imagine we might get to a really nice token price at some point. And like you
Yeah.
said, we can't give financial advice. I would say that for anybody that when you talk about mining the Helium tokens, and I talk on my channel about another project that's a competitor to Helium called MXC.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what people forget about is that whenever they say, "Well, how much is it earning per day for you?" Well, that's just a snapshot in time now.
Yeah.
Again, like early on, you could say, well, I was only making $10 or $20 a month because the token price was $1.
Hmm.
But if you hold on to your tokens and you keep mining the tokens today,
Yep.
what if HNT gets to $100 a token or
Yep. Yeah.
$500 a token? Then you're going to have to look at these returns much differently, just like everybody started doing in March and April when they realized, oh, wait, it's now gone from $1 to now it's 15 or 20.
Hmm.
So I think it's one of those things where it really is. You have, if there are people out there that may think of this as something where, hey, I'm going to make an immediate return on it. My guess is going to be, and I actually did make the mistake of doing that. I sold. I just wanted to see if it was even a liquid product. I was pretty new to crypto last
Hmm.
fall. I sold 120 of my HNT at $1.50.
Well,
Only because
that's,
at the time I'm like, hey, I invested $300 in this thing. I'm going to take a couple $100 out.
yeah.
At the time, crypto had been kind of in a dark winter for a couple of years, and nobody
Yeah.
really would have predicted it. But I think again, that would just speak to not making the mistake I did and thinking about the immediate term of
Yeah.
cashing out. You do what you need to do, and if you need some money, go ahead and do that. But if you can hold on to it, again, this may be one of those things that you look back someday when these things hit these higher prices and really see a crazy return on it.
Yeah, so Adam, look, I mean, the price of HNT is obviously really exciting, but I think that the price of HNT is going to be driven largely by what I personally see as strong fundamentals in the company or the organization and the network being driven by current and potential growth of the IoT. Now, there's a uplink call that will actually be done live in about 12 hours time. So by the time this video is up, in fact, it may even be past history. It's the uplink call on the Barnacle parcel tracking system. I believe you did a YouTube story on Barnacle when they did the blog. How exciting do you see something like Barnacle and the use case of that as it spreads?
I think that's probably the best example I've seen of all the use cases out there of something that I could be, it's relatable to us as a consumer. You hear about like the mouse traps and the irrigation
Hmm.
sensors and things like that that most of us probably don't, understand or involved with. But the fact that they actually are going to put something that you can place in a little card that you can put in a package and track it with the Helium network, and there's a use of, you're using those data credits to do that is again a good, like you said, a good example of some things that really, if those things take off and get some traction, that's just going to further the demand for HNT and increase that price. So I agree that, again, we're in our infancy, but we're already seeing some of these things happening.
But some of the use cases. Now, I've just grabbed, just whilst you're talking, sorry to be rude, but I just reached across and got a box. Now, this doesn't have a Barnacle tracker in it, and in fact, it's already open. But the things that I love about the Barnacle tracker is the fact that, guys, if you haven't heard about Barnacle, this is a company in the US that has already partnered up with Helium right now, and they are in the right now you can do a pre-order for the trackers. Now, the trackers are not something that creates your HNT. It's a product that you utilize. And I believe by the end of September they will actually be out there in the world, actually doing what they're meant to do. So if you have a parcel that has a particular valuable item in it, or it's not a valuable item, it's got valuable information, and you want to make sure that it gets from where you are to the other side, you put a little tracker, which is about the same size as a credit card, from what I can gather. It's probably a little bit thicker. It's there haven't been any images released of it, but you put that tracker inside, and essentially through the Helium dashboard or the software that comes with it, you turn it on, and that will then be able to track not only where the parcel is, but the thing that I really love about this, it's obviously got multiple sensors in it. It can also sense when the parcel's been opened. So what that really does is you can think of so many applications, and whilst it could go in a box, you could also put this into an envelope or a satchel or the likes. And there are many things that sometimes a legal document maybe doesn't become legal until it's been opened. And generally we do that with a signature saying, well, you've received it, so you've now got it. But in this case here, if you were to leverage off the Barnacle system, that I would see is just absolutely huge when it comes to parcel tracking right now being used in the US. I'm just blown away at the use cases for the whole IoT space. It's not a new technology; it's been around for years. Do you have a particular?
I think overall, what you're speaking to is when you think about it, cryptocurrency and any crypto project needs to be able to get adopted by the masses to truly be
Hmm.
successful. And if you really think about it, all of us that are in the crypto space, it all makes sense. But when you start to talk to people like my parents that are in their 70s about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and mining and Ethereum and all these other tokens, it goes over their head and they don't understand what you're doing. But if
Hmm.
you talk about Helium and what the Helium project is doing, and you start to explain all the things you're talking about, that's actually one of the projects that they kind of go, oh, okay, that actually does make sense.
Yeah,
You're providing, you're creating a network with your device that the network's being used for these sensors and
yeah.
trackers. People see that that's happening, and so they can kind of understand it more. I would say, it's kind of unoriginal, but I think the use case part that you described with Barnacle is probably the one that made the most sense to me
Hmm.
and seems more practical. The other things, like I said, like things I've heard about that they're using it for, are things like the other example I use a lot with people that I'm talking about that are new to this is when I think about the bikes and
Yes,
the and
the
the uh,
Lime
and the
scooters.
scooters that we
Yeah,
see a lot in the downtown areas of these bigger cities
yeah.
where they need something to track that with. That's been the example I use when I'm talking to the average person on the street about
Hmm.
helium and what this is. I use that as an example of like bikes, the scooters that people can rent and take around different areas where that makes sense to have a tracking device that using that Helium network is the other one I use personally myself for an example.
So all this comes back to that whole price of HNT. Will it go up? Will it go down? Well, I mean, it's a cryptocurrency, so it could go anywhere. Yesterday, Helium hit its all-time high, and I'm looking over at my trading view right now. It's sitting at $19.72. To generate it, place your hotspots out there, optimize your setup, hold that HNT long term, and it might only be worth $20. Right now, we say it might only be worth $20 today, but in 3 months' time, it could be worth $50. It could be worth $100. In 5 years' time, it could be worth hundreds of dollars. Of course, in 5 years' time, it could be worth $5. So that's why it's important not to invest anything in crypto, whether it be to purchase crypto itself or whether it's to purchase crypto generating equipment that you can't afford to lose. It's like every other business. There's no guarantees in life. There's no guarantees in business. So never invest what you can't afford to lose. But my strong belief is it's going up, and I think we're on a total winner.
The other thing I would just add really quick when you talk about the HNT token and people spending it now versus
Hmm.
later and holding it onto it, the other piece of advice that I wanted to bring up as well, again, like you said before, not financial advice, but one of the ways that you can sock this HNT away and kind of forget about it and not be tempted to spend it is with these validators that
Oh
they've moved
yeah,
to.
yes.
So, one of the things that I'm doing is that, and I've talked about that on my channel as well, is that the consensus groups, there used to be a group of Helium hotspots that would validate the network at any given time. And that's where
Hmm.
you got that 39 HNT reward every time if you were lucky enough to have your hotspot hit the consensus group.
Hmm.
Problem was that our helium hotspots are not equipped to take on the volume of the network and the complexity of the network these days. So just recently they moved that part of the system over to these larger nodes, these validators, where you actually can, in the case of that, you have to stake 10,000 HNT to
Hmm.
be a validator in the Helium network, which sounds like a lot of HNT and a lot of money, but there are a lot of services out there that allow you to partially stake and kind of
Hmm.
join a pool of HNT holders with a minimum typically of 100 HNT, where you then stake your 100 HNT into a pool and earn interest and earn an APR based on when those consensus group rewards hit. If you're part of that group or part of that pool, you're going to get those rewards. So the APR right now, I think, is around 9 or 10% a year on that. But you also cannot withdraw that HNT for a period of time until it kind of locks you in, which is good and bad. So again, like you said before, don't put something into that if you need the money to take out again. But it also, when any of the kind of staking mechanisms you see some of these cryptocurrencies having, where you're staking it to get a return, I think that it's not just the return that's important. It also kind of forces you to hold it for the long term
Yeah.
by putting it into a pool where you can't touch it. Like the MXC project was doing staking where and some bonding with some things where I chose a 1 year staking period where it actually got me a bonus reward in that
Hmm.
particular case. mostly because I wanted to put it into something I couldn't take out for a year, so I wasn't going to be tempted to touch it. With the Helium project, again, if you guys, and if, even if with you guys waiting for your miners to come in, another way to participate in the project is to just buy HNT off of the
Yeah,
out in the market
absolutely.
and hold on to it. Send it into one of these validators to get an APR around it.
Hmm.
So that's been one of my temptations where for anybody who ends up finding that their location isn't earning what they want it to, they can either sell it in the aftermarket or do something with it to
Sure.
allow themselves to, or just go invest in HNT as an investor, and
Hmm.
that's another good play to think about as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, we're obviously probably you and I are both focused, and most people watching this channel would probably be interested in hosting or rather having a hotspot or hosting a hotspot at their place. But there will be some just purchasing the HNT, given that it does have that strong fundamentals. It will
Mhm.
likely be a strong performer. One of the other areas, just to touch on briefly, because it's a hot news item out there at the moment, is 5G. Now, whilst I personally don't believe that we will ever see 5G here in Australia, it is something which is driving a bit of interest.
Yeah, and I think that for Australia or other places, because I've seen the feedback when I've talked about the 5G, update from Helium, I've seen some comments from people in Europe and other places that say that's never going to really do much here because of our search situation. I look at it as it's news about the project overall, and if you're an
Hmm.
investor as a hotspot owner or an investor in the Helium project or you own HNT, it's just even if it only does well in one part of the world, it's still going to benefit us because people are going to have to use data credits. They're going to have
Yep.
to, to get onto the network. It's still going to be healthy for the system overall. For
Hmm.
myself personally, when I found out about this Freedom 5 device that was coming out and it was going to be 5G capable, I signed up for the wait list. I plan on buying one of the devices. But I already recognize I'm probably not going to even deploy it or use it. I'll either find somebody else to host it for me,
Hmm.
or resell it for something just because I look at it as when I've talked to people about that, and I'm not really knowledgeable about it, but the person that installed all this for me that kind of knows all this better. With 5G, it's really in a very small, confined space.
Yes,
You would have to have a device set up in a coffee shop, in a
that's
retail
exactly right.
store, something
Yeah.
that's pretty fixed in there. So I might explore doing that with the investment of having to buy some additional equipment to make it capable for 5G. It may
Hmm.
be something that'll end up being beyond what I want to do personally, but I think that overall the news that this is something that Helium's looking at, even if it is in a limited space or limited use, just knowing that there's a lot of smart people out there that have kind of a bigger vision for Helium, I'm sure there'll be some people that will find a way to make that work well for the network, and it'll only benefit all of us going
Yeah.
forward doing that.
Yeah, totally true, mate. Anything that makes that brings shines the light on helium is a good thing, and 5G does definitely look like it is bringing some positives to the organization and to the whole network, which ultimately to HNT. So it was obviously a very big part of the recent spike that we had in price of when the investment into the 5G was announced. So it shows that 5G is actually worth something to all of us, even if it's not applicable to our particular part of the world. Okay,
Right.
Adam. Well, mate, look, it's been fantastic to have the opportunity to talk with you on this video. I really appreciate you taking the time to actually be here with me. The idea here is to try and bring other helium people, crypto influencers together to talk about their standpoint, and I really appreciate you being here on the call today. Is there anything that you want to share with the viewers before we say cheerio and g'day from Australia?
Yeah, I would just say I appreciate you having me on this channel to hear what's going on in the Australian market. Again, this is why I've enjoyed being in the cryptocurrency space, having a channel, being able to really meet people from around the world and just be a part of that global community. And this just brings us all together into one big family to be able to help, people in Australia, Europe, the US, all parts of the world, to be able to improve their financial situation and the kind of the global economy and with COVID and some of the things we've been dealing
Yeah.
with. I think just giving people a chance to get out of the situation they're in and helping them in some way any amount of money you can make extra and benefit from is obviously going to help everybody. So I think that's been the biggest takeaway from all of this is with Helium, with other things I talk about on the channel. Like you said before, it's a motivation of sharing something with the community that if it benefits people positively financially and can have an impact, that's what makes us all worth it. And it's been fun getting a chance to do that.
Okay, guys, we'll just one more time before we say goodbye to Adam, just make sure you do visit his channel. I'll put a link down in the description. His Crypto Gossip. He's got some great content. Primarily focuses on Helium, but does also touch on some other cryptocurrencies from time. He's got some really great content and great long-term knowledge. So, Adam, once again, mate, awesome to have you on the call. And I guess we'll be looking at you on YouTube again very soon. Catch you later, mate.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Cheers,
Thanks.
mate.